Many thanks for staying with us. Now let's analyze the stories making the rounds. And of course, joining me is Olusegun Okwade, Chairman, Ikeja District Society of ICANN. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Okwade.
Good morning, Mobolanle. My pleasure to be here, and good morning to all our viewers.
Good to have you join us. Now let's begin with this story, this worrisome one, saying Nigeria's budget deficit has risen to at least 30.5 trillion naira in the last 7 years. And of course, it's according to data from Budget Implementation Report for the third and fourth quarters of 2015, the fourth quarters of 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, and the first 3 quarters of 2021, and the first 4 months of 2022. Of course, deficit occurs when expenses are more than the revenue. But what are the ways by which we can boost revenue generation so that we can close this budget deficit gap?
Thank you very much, Bolanle, for having me. I think the area we need to look to is how we domesticate some of the problems that we have. We discovered that the country is import-based, and practically everything that we have are being imported, and there is no production that is going on in the country. Take, for example, we have so much resources in the oil and gas sector, which has to do with the availability of crude oil that is enough for us if we refine it to take care of some Western countries rather than we even buying from outside. That's enough revenue generation for us, because that will ease more of the problem of having to go for foreign exchange as a nation. Also, if you work in the area of revenue, you need to work also with your cost that you have as a nation. And we have said it times with that number that the cost of governance seems to be very high. And are there ways that we can work on it, possibly to reduce our bilateral legislative stuff, bicameral legislative stuff, into a single one, collapsing it, where we will not have the Senate and the House of Reps, but we can just have one. And they will ease the largesse that some of these people get, so that we can have more savings. But I think the area where we need to drive more, based on my profession, is how to generate more revenue. And until we domesticate some of the things we are doing, it might be very, very difficult.
But we have a budget, or rather a debt profile of over 40 trillion naira, and it looks like we're still going to keep borrowing in the coming days. What are the things that can be put in place, especially when you look at diversifying the economy, which this administration has talked about on several occasions?
Yeah, they've spoken about it, but they've not acted on it. If you look at diversifying to other sectors, agriculture plays a very prominent role, but you and I understand that insecurity has actually created food insecurity in the last few years, and that's an area that we should have get into. You remember when the administration was to be launched or to come in, they talked about improving the minds and skills so that we can produce certain things which would have opened up the businesses in the area of production of vehicles. But where are we today? The Okuta scale is still where it used to be. So, areas where they have promised for us to diversify into have not actually been worked on. Even where we have been refining before to even satisfy our domestic needs in area of the petroleum and other products are crude to it, has not been done. So these are problems that we have. We seem to have more of paperwork than the action that will improve the revenue, and they will continue to borrow more and more, because I cannot see any traces on the part of the government where certain things are being domesticated. If you look at the operating cost of an average business person as we speak, people are closing down organizations, they are relocating their offices out of the country because the cost of operation is really high. Look at what is going on in the aviation sector. Most consider that as an area where they can do their businesses and not having it in an interesting manner. So these are part of the problem that we are facing, and I cannot see light behind the tunnel, even with this administration, I might sound pessimistic, but that's the reality.
Oh, well, let's move on to this next story coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria, advising members of the organized private sector to always ensure that they repatriate foreign exchange proceeds back to the Apex Bank in order to ease forex pressure in the country. How do you react to this advice by the CBN?
Yeah, when I read the news about CBN charging and telling us that we should try, the private sector should look for ways to repatriate their foreign exchange. Well, there are other measures that they have actually put in place. Some of us have actually challenged. Remember the period where we said liberalize the system because the gap between the official rate and that of the black market is wide. And what we're saying over time is that certain companies, certain individuals are actually buying from the official market even without using it and selling at the black market, making wide margin for themselves. That they should actually just liberalize it and let the demand and supply forces regulate the foreign exchange market. But the CBN said that no. But this is something that I know that most organizations will want to do, in the sense that if they repatriate that back to the country and they need the same currency, are they going to get it at the rate at which they brought it? The answer is no. They keep struggling. So most of the private organizations might not use to what the CBN is saying. And I think that's what has different the policy of foreign exchange, where it's not difficult even for private companies that want to do legit business to do that. And you remember that they've actually streamlined even the dollar exchange rate via cap, because they discovered that that's an area where everybody can do businesses because it's a global village. So for me, I feel the CBN needs to work more on their policy in such a way that it will favor the people and there will be transparency in such a way that if such funds are repatriated back and are needed, it will not be difficult for an average businessman to get the funds, which is a challenge that they are faced with, and they just decide to see some of those funds out offshore there.
You know, the CBN has come up with different policies, especially to strengthen the Naira. You have the RT200, you have the Naira for dollar policy, but it looks like the Naira seems to be getting weaker by the day. But some people have said that, stakeholders have said that the ban on BDCs, as the Bureau de Change operators, is the bane of this weakening Naira.
Well, we can see that from one side of the coin. And like I said in my initially, you discover that the gap between the official rate and the parallel market is wide. So you ask yourself the question, if you get that from the official rate, and you know there is no BDC, you can also even sell to BDC. Imagine you are buying at the 416 or 470 that the CBN is giving it out, and you are selling to somebody even at 500, you've made 30 naira on each dollar for yourself, even when you claim that you want to use it for businesses. So that's why we said that collapsing the BDC is not the solution, but rather allow the law of demand and supply and remove the official rating, having two sides of this foreign exchange stuff. So that if you have it as high as even 1,000, everybody does that. Then you need to encourage the business owner, the private owner needs, okay, let me pump in more of this dollar so that we can bring down the rate. I know when I need it, I can have it, freely. But you're not repatriating those funds back. So we feel that the BDC should come in place. Let them resuscitate them back, regulate them the way it should be regulated, and do not allow the CBN telling us that this is the way they are selling. Let the forces of demand and supply play its role, even if it's going to be hard. One thing we know is that when demand outweighs supply, definitely the prices will increase. But when the prices increases, but when supply outweighs demand, it seems to stiffen up the thing, and that's what we have seen. So let them bring back the BDC and also remove the official rate that we are called, and let the law of demand and supply determine the rate at which foreign should be exchanged, and businesses can go with that.
Well, that's in tandem with what the IMF also has advised the federal government to do. But let's move on to this next story, talking about the blue economy. The federal government has approved the sum of $2.5 billion for the development of the Badagry Deep Sea Port project under a public-private partnership. And that's coming from the Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, saying that under a build, own, operate, transfer, delivery system, the port would be operated by the private sector for 45 years, after which it would be reverted to the government. What are your thoughts on this? Is this good news?
Yeah, well, it's good news, but, it's the consistency of the policy of the government that will make this to materialize. We have seen policies of assorted affecting some of the direct investment into the company by the private company. So the government, which is the public side of it, comes up with policy, and the next minute somebody comes and turn it down because he feels that those things are not just part of his own idea and plan. So I feel that it's a good development, but the reality is that how consistent is the policy to make sure that we actualize it. That is the gap we are facing. Bola, I will tell you for free that Nigeria has a fantastic, policy on paper. And the problem we have always been faced with is the implementation of this. So even if they have approved it, without good projects like that has actually been approved, but in terms of implementation, we always have issues, and that's why we had a serious setback in the growth as a nation.
Apparently, there will be need for some monitoring policy, especially when it comes to the fact that this is a good policy on paper, as you said, because there are projections that it would generate $53.6 billion in revenue and create about 250,000 jobs. What do you think the federal government should be looking at in terms of implementation of this policy? Should there be some form of laws or some form of act to back it up?
Yeah, there are laws if you want to talk about investing in this kind of a thing. But most of the time, we tend to beat the law and don't stick naive. Most of the time, it's always on the part of the government. You understand the challenges that were faced with in the power sector, which created the gap that we are still facing with, even when they liberalized the distribution company and the GENCO, staying intermediary at the TCS. So, like I said, the laws are there. The monitoring is what we lack. The sincerity and the will on the part of the government to monitor and see through some of the policies or the projects are the challenges that we are facing. If this can be improved upon, and we have, people that are committed to the growth of the nation and have that will to make sure that some of these things come to bear, you'll see some of those things, coming to reality, and every citizen will definitely be beneficiary of that.
Well said. Let's move on to the final story, and this is coming from the Miners Association of Nigeria, decrying the lack of adequate funding in the mining sector, and they're stating that the federal government has failed to effectively implement over 11.2 billion naira intervention funds for the mining sector. And of course, it goes without saying that this sector is one of the neglected sectors in the country. But what are your thoughts on this cry from the Miners Association of Nigeria?
Yeah, the issue there is that government has not only failed to the miners, but they failed to all. There are several interventions that they promised and they are not fulfilling. Even in the oil and gas sector, the promised intervention fund, and even the independent marketer never wait on them until they went ahead to increase the cost of the PMX and other things that are there. So I feel that the association, which is the Miners Association, needs to rejig their side and see the little that they can do. Remove the intervention from federal government and let the private owner who understand there is a lot to tap, even from this mining sector. Remember, we have gold in Zaifara that are being illegally being mined and refined, and several people are just. And we have the line, even in the southwest here. We have the coal. We have a lot of raw material, natural resources that the mining sector can venture into. I feel they should pull out the hand of government in the area of intervention, go into it, get counterpart funding from the FDI and get the best out of it. I'm sure by the time that is done, all you need to do is just to give back to the government their own aspect of which is their taxation, rather than you waiting for their intervention. As we speak, we all know that we have revenue crisis. And anyone waiting on government for any intervention cannot just get it because I don't see it coming. We are actually financing out of low revenue that we have. Actually, we our repayments without shooting our revenue, and no government will want to, shed funds, knowing fully well themselves that some of these intervention funds are not only properly being monitored, and on the long run, it's like just putting water inside the basket. So I would advise the miners to look at the alternative of revamping this sector that will now attract governments themselves able to see what they are doing, rather than waiting on government for certain intervention to do things.
But talking about illegal mining, the federal government at one time said they were going to ban illegal mining and that they were going to look into the fact that some of these people are not being prosecuted, especially those involved in the act. But some stakeholders have said that instead of banning or totally banning the illegal mining, they should look for ways to license these illegal miners so that we can boost revenue. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree the wrath of the people of saying that rather than calling them illegal miners, like we have those that were doing bunkering in the oil and gas sector, we should rather enhance some of the local way of them doing this and see how we can grow the business with them, have partnership with some of them, allow them to register because they have the idea, they know how to go about it. That will be contributing to the bottom line rather than declaring them illegal, and we are not even clamping on them. You declare them illegal, they are still carrying out the issue. They are carrying out they
are not being brought to book.
They are carrying out their illegal activity without anybody watching them. So what is the illegality? They are only empowering few people who understand that government are just backing without any. They are toothless dogs backing without any action. So for me, I feel that rather than stopping them, let's look for ways to empower and give regulation. And I'm sure if you regulate them and register them, license them to do certain things, more revenue will definitely come in.
All right, that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you so much, Olusegun Okwande, for your time on Business Breakfast this morning.
I appreciate you very well, Bolanli, and thanks so much to our viewers for watching us this morning.
All right, have a swell day now. Still coming after the break, member states of the African Union have projected that their blue economy capacity will be worth $405 billion, creating 57 million jobs by 2030. Well, that's less than 8 years away. How is Nigeria leveraging this projection with regards to opening up its ocean economy? Well, that's our next talking point after this break. Please stay with us.